Why Albanian language is so strange? Well, let's get started with classification and history. Albanian is a language of its own branch of Indo-European family. That means that Albanian is related to, for example, Slavic, Romance and Germanic languages. But they are not close relatives for Albanian. It is isolated. According to very popular theory, Albanian's ancestor was Illyrian language. This theory looks supposedly pretty obvious, looking at the geographical location of both languages. But actually we know almost nothing about Illyrian, and this fact makes Albanian probably the most mysterious among languages in Indo-European family. You will quickly understand this weirdness of Albanian because many interesting things are noticed right away in phonology and orthography. So, what do you see firstly when you look at any Albanian text? Of course, a lot of such strange letters. This is E with two dots, and that letter represents sound O, like in English word the. This is one of the most popular letters in Albanian alphabet and very characteristic feature for Albanian language. But there is where the weirdness only begins. For example, let's look at the system of letters which represent some alveolar and post-alveolar sounds. S, Z, Sh, and J. So far it looks obvious, but here X's join to this system. One of them represents sound Z, and the second one, with H, represents sound J. Okay, X's are almost never used in this way, but even then this system looks like pretty logical. Simple letters for alveolar sounds and letters with H for post-alveolar sounds. And then letters for sounds Ts and Ch join to this party. Why there are not a digraph CH for sound ch? Why there is weird letter C with cedilla? I don't know, but let's agree if this system would look like this, or especially like this, it would be extremely boring. While this unlogical decision in orthography make Albanian so unusual and interesting in its text form. Apart from that, Albanian has entertaining dichotomies. There are differences between one R, like in the word Faleminderit, thank you, and two R's, like in the word Rofsh, also thank you, but it's not official form. And yeah, one letter R represents almost the same sound as letter R in British English. Also, one L and two L's have different pronunciation. One L represents light L sound like in the word liber, book, while two L's represent dark L sound like in the word popul, people. Also, there is a difference in orthography between th and the sounds. If we talk about soft palatal sounds, there are four of them in Albanian: U, N, G. Palatological system. Everywhere is letter J for palatalization and Q. Yes, Albanian language likes to break the rules and it's just super. And in the end of this section I should say a few words about Albanian keyboard. It's based on Central European keyboard and that's why Z and Y represent sound U, by the way, changed their place. Returning to the letters Q and GJ. Usually those letters don't represent sounds Q and G, but rather are pronounced as Ch and J, like C with cedilla and XH. But actually this situation could be even more complicated. I heard information from Albanians that Q and GJ are softer than C with L and XH. That means that, for example, words chai and chai have different pronunciation. C with cedilla is pronounced as ch, and Q is pronounced as ch. Palatal and softer version of this sound, as well as words jam and jack have different first sound. XH represents sound j and GJ represents sound j. But this topic is extremely complicated and there a lot depends on the concrete dialects. Same as in the case of schwa sound. Yes, I've said that E with two dots is pronounced as but actually in some Tosk dialects it represents sound e or even a. Sometimes this letter even could be silent and doesn't represent any sound, especially when it is at the end of the word. For example, mir, good, and certificate. Or when this letter occurs between two consonants in an unstressed syllable, like in puscesia, smile. At first glance, Albanian grammar is average, pretty similar to other Indo-European numerals, një, dy, tre, katër, pesë, and so on. Through genders, masculine, feminine, and neuter, singular and plural numbers, sometimes even conjugation of the word to be resembles the one in other Indo-European languages. And 5 very usual cases, like accusative, dative, and wait, what? Ablative? What is that? This is a grammatical case which is used to indicate motion away from something. That's why with nouns in this case often occurs word re, from. This case also exists in Latin and has similar functions, but this case in Albanian, in combination with other cases which are very average and widespread, looks pretty strange. There is extremely interesting situation with infinitive. Infinitive rather doesn't exist in Albanian, as well as in the many other languages of Balkan language area. Instead of infinitive, Albanians use first-person singular form of verb. For example, jam, I am, or kam, I have. But probably the most interesting, unusual and strange part of Albanian grammar are articles. Okay, let's get started with a simple indefinite article, nie, which corresponds to English articles an, or Greek article enos. Same as in the case of English and Greek, this Albanian article is related to the word one. Well, that looks simple. What about definite article in Albanian, which corresponds to English the? And here begins very strange part, because there are a lot of definite articles and all of them are post-positive. What does it mean? Let's consider this with example. Here is the word liber, book. If we want to add definite article to this word, we should add it not before but at the end of the word, and then we'll get libri with a definite article e. But of course, that's not the only definite article in Albanian. For example, in accusative, the word liber has article in, not e, liberin. So yeah, it depends on grammatical case as well as on the gender, number and type of noun. The word mik, friend, is masculine, like liber, but mik ends with the sound k. So here we have article u, not e, miku, while shkum, feminine word, has feminine definite article a, shkuma. It looks very strange and complicated when we observe the whole system of postpositive articles. But the most interesting part of Albanian article is still ahead. Adjectival articles. These articles are used with obviously adjectives and nouns in genitive. How does it look like? For example, we would like to say strong person, strong, fort, person, person. So we could think that sentence strong person is translated, looking at the Albanian syntax, as person fort, right? Now, actually, we should translate this phrase as person e fort, with special adjectival article for the word fort. But be careful with borrowed adjectives. In phrase person individual, individual person, we shouldn't use any adjectival articles, because individual is borrowed from another language. Of course, form of adjectival article depends on gender, case, number, etc. But there are only 4 forms: e, s, and t. Why? Everything is simple. The form t just coincides in large part of cases, as well as other forms of adjectival article apart from s. In this screen you can see all articles in Albanian. Their quantity is really large, especially compared to 3 English articles. There are still many interesting things in Albanian language that make it worth learning, but I told you about the most unusual for me. Thank you for your attention.